Welcome to Unscripted with Russo. For our podcast, we decided to explore the people behind the narratives. I'll introduce decision makers and influencers and find out the intimate story behind their rise to success. Welcome, everybody, to Unscripted with Russo. I'm here with my good friend Andrew Stanten, and we are broadcasting from somewhere brand new today. We are at Factory in Bethlehem. Exciting place, huh, Andrew?
Yeah, this is pretty neat to see how this has come alive for sure.
It really has. A lot of us have watched this place for a long time and seen it built, and it is hustling and bustling. There's a lot going on. So thanks for coming and joining us on Unscripted.
My pleasure.
All right, so I want to start from the beginning. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up, and kind of what were you like as a kid? Describe 7-year-old Andy.
Nobody calls me Andy except my mother-in-law. I grew up in Boston, the northern suburbs. And at a very early age, it was probably about 7 or 8, I started to stretch my entrepreneurial wings. I was a newspaper carrier for the Boston Globe. And the blizzard of 78 hit. And we didn't have the internet back then. And there was no Weather Channel, and nobody could get their news or information anywhere but the Boston Globe. And despite being completely snowed in, somehow I got my newspapers delivered to every one of my 32 customers. And I realized a week later when I went to collect from them, the tips I got were amazing, which said, when you give good customer service with a good product to people, you can make amazing things happen for yourself.
That's great. What a great message at an early age. That's amazing. How long did you do that for?
I was probably a paperboy for the Boston Globe for about 3 years.
So I was only a fill-in. So my brother was a paperboy, and I was the fill-in. But I thought it was pretty fun. I mean, you know, I like people. I like getting out there. It was interesting.
Yeah, well, in the Boston winters, I don't know that fun would describe it.
Especially the time of day, too. It's an early, early morning gig.
Early. Yeah, 2.5 feet of snow.
It's interesting because you go back to a time where people forget nowadays. You know, we're so used to everything being in our hands and at our fingertips that the paper was the king. You know, that was it. That's the only way you got information, really.
The only way people knew what the heck was going on.
What about school? What was school like for you? Were you into sports? Did you have favorite subjects?
Growing up in school, I mean, I was kind of focused on my academics. I mean, played a little bit of baseball, a little bit of basketball, but was never quite athletic enough to make it in high school. So just kind of buckled down and focused on school and charted my course ahead. And so.
Did you always have part-time jobs? Like, was it something you were a paper boy? What else did you go on to do?
Oh, yeah. I pretty much did everything at Dunkin' Donuts through high school.
Really?
I started sweeping the floors to working the counter to making the donuts and the muffins. 4 straight years. Yeah.
Amazing. What's your favorite product?
I would have to say the chocolate cake donuts.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
stuff.
A good one. That's great. You went on to Syracuse University, amazing school. Did you know what you wanted to study? What did you study? And was it like a first choice school? Did you know this was a great place to go, or was it sort of you lucked into it?
Yeah. Well, Syracuse has and still does have one of the best communication schools in the country with the Newhouse School. And I had my sights set on that. It was between that and BU, Boston University, which had a great program. Got into both of them and made the decision to go to Syracuse, which worked out pretty gosh darn good. My first major, though, was broadcast journalism, and I realized pretty quickly I had a face and a voice for radio, not TV.
I'm glad we could bring you full circle to podcasting, much like radio, but very similar. I mean, we have a very similar background of what we kind of went into and why we went into it, and I looked at BU and Syracuse, too, and ended up in New York, but, you know, same idea and just great school. So tell me a little bit about your time there. What did you get involved in?
I started working for the Daily Orange, which was one of the few student-run daily newspapers out there, writing articles as a freshman. I was getting great assignments to interview all sorts of people pretty high up the chain at Syracuse, and I thought, wow, I've got a real knack at this journalism thing. I've gotten great bylined articles, etc. And it turns out my writing wasn't all that good, but it did. What I realized a year and a half later is that the assignment editor, Michelle, actually had a thing for me and just wanted to call me up and get me into the newspaper to write a little bit more. And fast forward 30 years, she's still my boss, and I couldn't be happier about that.
I did not know that's how you guys met. So, funny story, I actually knew your wife long before I knew you because we had some crossover at Rodale and work at Prevention Magazine together 25 years ago. Yeah, and it just come full circle. I had come out here to the Lehigh Valley and met, remember the old King George, was that what it was called? King George Inn. That's where I went to lunch when I was working for, some freelance work for them. And I, of course, your wife was pretty well known in that world, and I love that. I didn't know you guys met in college.
Yep, she was my boss then, and as I always say, I know my place now.
Stuck with it. So tell me a little bit about the trajectory in college. You started with broadcast journalism, and where did that go, and what did you sort of seek out as that first job?
Yeah, so I pivoted pretty quickly into communications management. I knew I wanted to be on the business side, and the easiest place for me to get internships, and it's something that I completely drill home to anybody that wants to talk to me about career advice, is get as many internships as early as you can, because one will get you the next, will be a better one, a better one, a better one. And so I got an internship working at a radio station out at Syracuse, and I ended up interning, I think, at 2 different radio stations for a total of about 4 semesters while I was out there, and realized I had a knack for sales. And so I was shadowing their #1 salesperson, working on radio promotions and sales and doing all that kind of stuff. And that kind of launched where I was going to start my career.
What do you feel like, looking back now, were some of the big lessons that you learned from those internships? I often say the very same thing, and I feel like my internships were so formative in what I learned, and I kind of look back and think about some lessons. So is there something that has stayed with you that you learned during that time?
Absolutely. It's never take a good success for granted, because I saw firsthand, the guy I was mentoring with, he would close deals left and right, and then 3 weeks later, the contract would get torn up for whatever reasons, right? And things just happen in business, and you always have to be hustling. You always have to be moving. Can't lose sight of the long-term prize, but you can never rest on your laurels.
When you graduate, what's the first job? First job after college?
So good story there. I mean, back then, again, we didn't really have the internet to search for jobs or anything, and I interned in radio stations. So I applied to 50 radio stations up and down.
I'm going to stop you right there, because I want people to hear the fact that you applied to 50 jobs.
50 jobs.
So you knew what you wanted to work in, and you applied to 50. And I think that a lot of people might find that surprising, because they think they can apply to 4 or 5 places, and then they go, well, I can't find a job.
Yeah. Well, and I just blanketed radio stations from Manchester, New Hampshire to Washington, D.C., hoping that they would have an opening in sales, because that's where I had my experience. And out of those 50 resumes I sent out, I got 2 job interviews. One was at WZZO and one was at WLEV, both here in the Valley, where Michelle, my wife, hailed from. And I said, you know what? I'm not a religious person, but this is fate, and I think I was meant to marry this girl. And I took the job at WLEV, and the rest is kind of history.
Really? I didn't know that piece either. That's pretty amazing. And how long did you stay there?
I hated it. Oh, my gosh.
So what was the difference between the internship and the real life?
Well, in the real life job, I was trying to sell local radio advertising to Main Street, Lehigh Valley during a recession. It was not fun. I probably got yelled at, screamed at, and told to get the heck out, more often than I could really stomach it. But fortunately, about 8 months later, I was able to land what I consider really my first real job at Rodale.
And what were you doing there?
I was the sales and marketing manager for the Velodrome, so I got the experience of being able to do everything from the sales, the sponsorship, laying out newsletters, writing the content, doing the PR.
Events,
everything that you needed to do to help pull that stuff off. We were a very lean team at a world-class operation, and it was 4 of us, and I pretty much had to wear about 11 different hats.
Wow. But it's such a quick way to learn so many jobs, right? Yeah. I mean, trial by fire, you either sink or swim.
Either sink or swim.
When you look back at that time, what were some of the lessons you took from that?
That you can't be afraid to work hard, right? We were pulling incredibly long hours to pull off world-class events, in what used to be a cornfield out in the middle of Trexlertown. And we were attracting world-class Olympians and cyclists from New Zealand and Australia and from over in Europe, and we were hosting major national events, and the reward for that was just seeing the crowds building in there, the excitement, and being able to pull something off that you could put your mark on. So that was pretty exciting. The
importance of those long hours in that time in your life, I think, is a critical message. I want to get into a little bit more about altitude marketing and how you build that business. We're going to take a quick break, so everybody stay tuned. We're talking to Andrew Stanten. We are here at Factory in Bethlehem. We're going to learn all about how he built his successful business when we get back after this break. Stay with us. Time to take your workout outdoors. Discover Lehigh Valley is a great resource for finding easily accessible nature trails with stunning views and challenging terrain. Whether you're exploring the Delaware and Lehigh Trail or going for a jog on the Ironton Rail Trail, explore Discover Lehigh Valley to get you started. Follow them on Instagram, Lehigh Valley, PA. Welcome back to Unscripted with Russo. I'm here with my good friend Andrew Stanten, an amazing business person. He owns Altitude Marketing in Emmaus, and he's been telling us a little bit about how he got started. And you had an interesting job right out of college, didn't love it, but you learned a lot. And then you went to Rodale, running the velodrome, you were talking a little bit about that and how you were wearing about 10 or 11 different hats. Tell me where that took you and kind of the foundation it laid for you to really go out and start a business.
So I was at the velodrome for about 2 years, working with a great team. I will say I was not running it. I was running marketing and sales. There was definitely somebody running the facility itself. But they were part of Rodale at the time. And the velodrome was more of a nonprofit branch of Rodale, if you will. And I always had my sights set on working for the press back at the time. So I was recruited into a job at one of the magazines after about 2 years. To take on all the sales support and the sales marketing at Organic Gardening Magazine, which is kind of where it all started for Rodale, and that was a pretty amazing experience.
And from that job, were you connected in a different way? Like, what kind of skills were you developing when you took that job on that you hadn't had the ability to kind of flex before?
Sure. And at the velodrome, it was a great experience, but I was flying without a safety net. And once I was within Rodale, working on one of the publications, I was just surrounded by incredibly smart, seasoned, talented people that had been there, done that, and they knocked me down about 4 pegs, which was great.
Yeah, and did you have the opportunity to kind of see how a successful team was managed? Because I feel like as business owners, that's a piece that sometimes isn't really taught. You have to kind of learn it by experience of being part of a team.
Yeah.
And what did you see in that and learn in that opportunity?
I mean, the biggest takeaway I had from my experience at Rodale is that culture matters. Back then, it was an amazing company that put people first. They lived and breathed their mission. I mean, often we see mission statements written on walls of companies and they're kind of hollow, but they really lived and breathed that mission. So if you worked at Bicycling Magazine, you were expected to be out on your bike at noon riding. If you worked at scuba diving, you were expected, to go take epic dive trips, so you could be able to talk about that with your audiences and with the manufacturers and the advertisers that you were trying to woo. And they really believed in the healthy, active lifestyle, everything from the cafeteria to the on-site daycare. And it was those types of lessons that I pulled with me when we started Altitude to say, you know what, I'm going to take the best aspects of my experience at Rodale and really accentuate them here and really, really realize that I wanted to build a company that if I didn't own it, I would still want to come to work every day.
I love that. It's so important. And I think that Rodale was really ahead of its time. We're seeing that culturally. I think, millennials have really driven the concept of living and breathing the mission of a company. But you think back, 25, 30, 40 years ago, and they were doing it way before a lot of people were doing it. It's pretty good that you took that from it. Yep. So tell us about Altitude Marketing. I mean, what was the vision there? What kind of work do you do? What kind of clients do you work with? And a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, so after Rodale, I spent about 2 years working at Lehigh. I was director of communications there. I'd got my MBA there, had a very strong affiliation with Lehigh, and was given the opportunity to take care of some PR and some communication work there. And I realized relatively quickly that I had a higher and different calling. Working in an academic setting was great, but it wasn't really driving and growing a business and something that I could call my own. So I decided to launch Altitude in 2004. And at the time, there was a lot of, I'll call them boutique agencies. And if you wanted help with some content, you would have to hire a writer, and you help with some PR, you'd hire a PR firm and then a design firm. And there was very little that was being done, at least back then, unless you had major, major budgets to really pull all the elements of marketing together into an integrated fashion. So in 2004, when we launched, we wanted to be exclusively focused on B2B, not B2C, and we wanted to practice this relatively new form of marketing called integrated marketing, where you work smarter, not harder, where the pieces of the puzzle all fit together, and ultimately it really stuck.
And a lot of times when you have to, as the companies that you now work with, you can't piecemeal everything. I mean, that piecemeal mentality gets exhausting on your staff pretty quickly and not necessarily as strategic as you could be. What really led you to take that leap, though? So I want to talk about a little bit about what was going on in your personal life at the time, because you've got a couple kids, you're married, and you're going to leave your job and start a business.
Yeah, I mean, it's true to this day, it was the best deal I ever made. When I approached Michelle and said, I've got this crazy idea. I want to leave a relatively cushy job at Lehigh and go start my own marketing agency. And at first she thought I was crazy, but then she started to listen a little bit. And she says, okay. She goes, I'll tell you what, I will give you 3 years of rope. And you'll either hang or you'll swing. And when you swing, I get my 3 years. And so I shook hands with her. We made the deal. After the first 6 months, we were profitable. And about 4 years later, she was able to leave her full-time job at Rodale and start a wonderfully thriving freelance career and raise our family. And it was the best deal I've ever made.
That is awesome. It's amazing. Do you feel like that sort of the deal that you made helped propel the success? I mean, do you feel, what was the motivation to really make it work?
I couldn't have done it without the support of Michelle. I mean, she had a great career. She was doing very well. She had health benefits. And I was literally, once again, flying without a safety net, except for her. And so that really enabled me just to go full force and make this thing a reality. And it was, again, the best deal I've ever made.
When you set out, what were you seeking as far as the clients were concerned? And did you have a staff, or was it just you to start? How did it work?
Started it with one other individual. We launched the company, quickly realized that I could sell very well, and we quickly outstripped the ability of the two of us to do what we could do. So we started banding together some freelancers and some 1099s, et cetera, and ended up making our first hire, like full-time hire, I think about a year and a half later. And we kind of took off from there.
That's funny. It's like the business owner story, isn't it? I mean, I could be filling in. I mean, it's kind of what we did. You know, it's just you have an idea and then you sell and then you figure out, wow, we need more people to do the work. Wow, we need different skill sets to get that done. And how do you grow? So as you grew, how did you maintain that culture? You talked about that being so important and a lesson that you learned at Rodale. What have you done at Altitude to maintain that? How many people are you guys now?
We're 25 full-time now and a couple part-timers.
Wow. So that's pretty big. I mean, that's big growth from one employee a year and a half. And
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I mean,
and you're talking about what, you guys are 15, 16 years in business now.
We turned 16 this year. It's pretty amazing.
That is amazing.
And culture, I mean, my message there is it doesn't happen overnight. It's something you build. It's something that ebbs and flows and changes, but ultimately, you know, as the leader of the organization, you need to put forth what the visions are, what the mission is, and ultimately what you value. And that's really important. And, you know, things that I took from Rodale, like summer Friday hours, right? You know, I'm an avid cyclist. I love to ride my road bike. And summers, on Friday during the summer, I want to get out and ride my bike. You know, I love to go out for 2-3 hour rides, but I also felt guilty about taking that time away from my kids. So the best way to do that was, you know, leave work early on Friday. And as the boss, I could have just left early and left everybody sitting there, you know, working and plugging away. I said, that's not fair. That's not the kind of company I want to have. If they see me leaving, I want them to be able to get a jump start on their weekend too. And so it started very slowly, and we built towards that, where we really created an employee-centric culture where people matter. And I really do believe that if you take care of your employees, they're going to take care of your clients, and then your clients will take care of you, and the rest of it will just blossom from there. Absolutely.
I think that idea of kind of the give and take, and you put it out there, and whatever you reap, you sow. So it's just really really nice to hear that there's a company like that locally, and you've stayed true to staying in the Lehigh Valley. You know, you're in Emmaus. You just gutted and redid this amazing building. It's incredible, but cool. Like it sort of says local, but yet you're this national firm. Why have you stayed here?
I found, I mean, from a personal level, I love the quality of life here in the Valley. When you look at, you know, where we're located, the cost of living, the schools, the open spaces that exist for us to go ride our bikes and go hike it on South Mountain or up in Hawk Mountain or go riding through Bucks County. It's just an amazing place. You know, the school district where we are, it's fantastic, right? My kids have gotten a wonderful education, and the cost of living is great. I mean, you go right over the border into Jersey, and it's a lot more expensive. And I look at a lot of my friends and family who are still up in the Boston market, and they just are in awe when they hear, you know, about what you can get for, you know, in terms of your home and in terms of, you know, everything that you do down here is just it's very, very good on the pocketbook and for the family.
I couldn't agree more. I'm a transplant too, and we're staying. All right. Well, we're going to be back with Andrew Stanten after the break. We're going to talk a little bit more about some of your favorite things and what you love to do in this region and calling the Lehigh Valley home. So stick with us, Unscripted with Russo. You know, family time is about creating memories together to last a lifetime. And what better way to bond than spending time at some of the amazing attractions the Lehigh Valley has to offer? You know, you can cheer on the Lehigh Valley Phantoms or take a walk on the wild side at the Lehigh Valley Zoo. However you enjoy spending your free time, there's something here for every member of the family. For more information on things to do in the Lehigh Valley, head over to Discover Lehigh Valley's website at discoverlehighvalley.com. All right, Andrew, Welcome back, everybody. We are with Andrew Stanten from Altitude Marketing, and we are talking about the Lehigh Valley now. You talked a little bit in the last section about why you've stayed here, why you built your business here. Tell me a little bit about what you think it is that makes the Lehigh Valley a unique place to live, a special place to be. Because when you come here, a lot of people describe it as special.
I think it's the perfect size, right? It's not some massive city, and it's not, this tiny little rural area, right? You've got kind of the best of both worlds. We can be out in the rolling hills in the farm country in about 5 minutes, but yet you've got downtown Bethlehem, you got downtown Allentown. That's really been resurgent lately. You've got things happening down in Easton. And if you really want, we can be down in Philly in 60 minutes and in Manhattan in 90. So it's kind of that perfect right size area that you get a little bit of the best of both worlds.
I love that. And I think that, I love that you can get into the mountains quickly, you can get to the beach quickly. People ask about it. I'm like, it's really kind of the perfect place. What are some of your favorite things to do around here? I mean, if you go out on the weekends, you talked about cycling, is there a family activity or a place that you love to go or a festival that you participate in that you feel like when you go somewhere else, you talk about that thing?
First and foremost, selfishly, it's the cycling. I mean, I love getting on the bike, doing 40, 50, 60 milers. I'll be gone for 2, 3, 4 hours and just rolling from where I am in Lehigh County through Bucks County down to the Delaware River and back, and spend a good morning doing that. I mean, that's pretty amazing. That's great solo time. I get inside my own head, do some great thinking about the business then and just about life when I'm on the bike. With my family, there's no better place for me than hiking on South Mountain in Emmaus. This was land that was gifted by Bob Rodale many, many, many years ago, and it's been taken care of by the Wildlands Conservancy. There's a wonderful little trail network back there. You can go out there and do anything from a quick 30-minute loop to a 2-hour hike. And I used to mountain bike back there a lot when I was a little bit younger, and it didn't hurt so much now. Taking the kids and the dog back there is just one of our favorite things to do.
It's amazing how beautiful it is in this region at all times of the year. What is the future for Altitude Marketing? What's next for you? You've built this amazing company. You have done so much in and for the area of the Lehigh Valley. What is next?
So we just want to keep on, moving forward. As we said earlier, you can't rest on your laurels. Last year we were honored to hit the Inc. 5000, which was recognition of being one of the fastest growing privately held companies in America.
Which, by the way, congratulations.
Thanks.
It's so amazing. And I feel like a sense of pride that not only do I know you and you have a business here, but that we get to work with you. And it really is a cool thing. I mean, what did that feel like?
It was humbling, actually, because we look around every day, our office, and we've got a great team, and we're doing amazing work for companies all over the globe. But to get that kind of external validation was pretty neat. It wasn't a popularity contest like some other awards. It was really based on business results and financial performance. And when you look at that, there's no arguing with it. So it was validating, but very humbling at the same time.
Yeah, makes you realize, I think you got to keep doing what you're doing, but keep focused every day. So, yeah. Andrew, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, Andrew Stanten from Altitude Marketing. We've been so blessed to have him here on our podcast here today. We've learned a lot, and there's more to come. As a mother of 2, I know it can be tough to find activities that everyone will enjoy. Luckily, the Lehigh Valley has so many ways to treat your family without breaking the bank. You can experience cool discoveries at the Da Vinci Science Center or all aboard the WK&S Railroad train for an afternoon adventure. There's fun around every corner of the Lehigh Valley, and you can uncover it all on Discover Lehigh Valley's website. Visit discoverlehighvalley.com for more information. Andrew Stanten, you have not heard these questions, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, this is the rapid fire round. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. If you won the lottery, what is the first thing you would do?
Secure my kids' financial future.
What is one food you cannot live without?
Chocolate.
Which actor would you cast to play you in a movie about your life?
Jeez. Gosh.
That's a hard one.
Ben Stiller.
That's a great answer. If you didn't have the job you have now, what would you be doing instead?
I would probably be working with startup companies.
Name one person who inspires you.
Barb Newton.
And your favorite hobby or pastime?
Riding my bike.
All right, Andrew, thanks for chatting with us. Rapid fire questions, good answers.
Thanks.
So thanks for listening to Unscripted with Russo. Until next time.